Hey lore lovers, my name's Eric and this is the Lorebrarians YouTube channel. In today's video we're going to explore the story surrounding the upcoming Magic set, Ikoria, Lair of Behemoths, told mainly through the ebook titled Sundered Bond, as well as the spotlight cards released in the set. If you haven't already, be sure to check out my video on the plane of Ikoria to get a better understanding of the setting. Alright, let's dive in. Although Vivian Reed has been central to the marketing of Ikoria, Lair of Behemoths, the set's storyline follows a new character native to the plane, Lukka. Lukka is a member of the Coppercoats, the military organization that protects the humans of the sanctuary city of Drannith from the horrifyingly brutal monsters of the world. Lukka's position within the military's hierarchy is that of captain of the 1st Special Intercept Squad, or Specials for short. A crack unit of elite soldiers tasked with tracking and killing the deadliest threats to the city before they even reach the city's defenses. As both a human on Ikoria and a member of the Coppercoats, Lukka has a deep-seated resentment for the monsters that roam the plane, a resentment that grows stronger after his squad is killed while tracking down a new beast that had entered the outskirts of the sanctuary. This flying cat is illustrated in the card Patagia Tiger. There have been many reports recently of all sorts of new monsters appearing around Drannith and attacking its defenses in an almost coordinated way. An interesting note that we'll definitely get back to. Lukka himself is saved at the last moment when a bright flash of green energy appears between him and the monster, and their two minds are connected. He feels its sensations and emotions, but above all, mere seconds before passing out, he feels a foreign influence in the monster's mind, driving it to attack Drannith. Lukka comes to in the infirmary on Drannith, where he recounts his tale to his fiancée, Jarina Kudrow, the daughter of the military leader of Drannith, General Kudrow. Lukka's story sounds similar to many reports coming in across Ikoria of humans creating mental and emotional bonds with monsters. This connection, known as a Luda, is seen as a threat by the general, who believes that siding with monsters is treason against humanity and will lead to the downfall of their city. Kudrow thinks Lukka's newfound connection to the cat beast will bring with it compassion, ultimately leading to his betrayal of his duties, even though Lukka insists on his unwavering loyalty to Drannith. The general orders Lukka's arrest and summary execution, but Jarina helps him escape the city center to head towards freedom while they try to sort out this dire circumstance. The flavor text of the card Checkpoint Officer and the spotlight card Sanctuary Lockdown tell us how the general feels about Lukka's flight. While the city is on high alert, he's stopped by a few soldiers at a checkpoint asking for identification. They realize he's the traitor they're looking for, but before they can capture him, a luminous green arrow streaks through the sky and brings with it an ethereal beast that attacks the soldiers. Vivian Reed of the Arcbow has appeared on the plane and rescues Lukka. The two escape the dangerous city and flee into the not much more hospitable wilderness of Ikoria. After Vivian's sudden, strange appearance and display of unusual magic, Lukka questions her. She reveals that she has been tracking him since his interaction with the cat beast. Their shared connection let out a huge blast of shamanic magic that caught Vivian's attention. Lukka believes if he can hunt down and kill the monster, then he'll be accepted back into his beloved Drannith with open arms. And he quickly realizes that Vivian might be the tracker he needs to find the beast. Vivian herself is curious about the plane of Ikoria and wishes to learn more about the mysterious mutations and crystals that seem to drive them, as well as learn about the Aluda and how bonders form their connection with monsters. She can still sense the lingering energy of the cat beast and agrees to track it for Lukka so long as he answers any questions on their journey. Meanwhile, in Drannith, Jarina is reeling from the recent development. She's struggling desperately to determine how to bring her fiancé back unharmed and in the good graces of the general. But that doesn't seem a possibility. General Kudrow isn't satisfied with Lukka's flight from the city. He believes the captain's extensive knowledge of Drannith's defenses could prove to be devastating if he allied with the monsters. As such, Kudrow assembles a team of monster slayers and bounty hunters to capture Lukka and return him to Drannith for interrogation. He assigns his daughter Jarina to the team to ensure its success, knowing that Lukka would never harm his beloved. With that, the team sets out to follow Lukka's tracks. A few days later, Vivian and Lukka make marked progress in tracking the beast. It is just beyond a small thicket, but the sun has gone down in the horizon and Vivian senses a dark presence among the trees. Not wanting to be exiled any longer, Lukka rushes headlong into the thicket. All is quiet at first with no sign of the cat or any other monster, but a pair of glowing eyes soon becomes a dozen as a massive nightmare surges through the shadows. Vivian lets loose an arrow that manifests into a giant ape, but the nightmare is too much for it. The monster shoots a web too fast for Vivian to dodge and immobilizes her. It turns to Lukka, stalking and ready to strike. With only a small sword, Lukka is prepared for the end, but then something uncoiled in his mind. A set of sensations that were not his own. His wings tucked back against his sides as he dove, the wind whipping through his fur. It's the cat beast in the Eluda he shares with it that gives him access to its mind. The beast senses his danger and rams the nightmare, tearing into it with sharp teeth and raking it with large claws. This rescue is illustrated in the card, Go for Blood. After the nightmare is defeated, Lukka speaks to Vivian about the Eluda, about how he can read the cat's thoughts, how he heard a voice resonating within the beast's mind and coming from the mysterious crystal structure known as the Ozolith, urging the monster to destroy the humans in their city. The shamanic energy that surged from the Eluda freed the cat from the Ozolith's thrall. But who does the voice belong to, and why does it want the sanctuary city destroyed? Before they can answer those questions, a group of savage hunters emerges from the woods and into the clearing, and Lukka is stunned to see his fiancée Jarina leading them. Their reunion turns sour quickly when the hunters resort to violence to capture Lukka. The story spotlight card, Thwart the Enemy, illustrates this interaction as Vivian protects him from the hunters. The two jump on the back of the cat beast as it takes off to the skies and brings them to safety. In light of recent events, Lukka realizes that merely killing the cat will not grant him entry into his beloved city. But if he could control the monsters of Ikoria and use them as a defense, then Kudra would again see his value to Drannith. His mission becomes a search for the mysterious Ozolith, and Vivian Reed, interested in the nature of the crystals and its manipulation of the monsters, agrees to join him. The two head north and meet a group of bonders who have also seen or heard the Ozolith in visions and have witnessed its ability to control the minds of unbonded creatures. Vivian reveals her planeswalker nature, claiming that she came to their world on the trail of another of her kind, and that he is likely behind the strange happenings. The Bonders agree that the Ozolith is the cause of recent unrest, but state that it is heavily guarded by an army of enthralled nightmares and other monsters. If they go, they must be prepared for battle. The large group travels together to try to return the crystal to its natural state, although Lukka has his own motives. If he can somehow show the general that the Ozolith is responsible for his bond, if he can prove his loyalty to humanity, then the general will let him back. Along the way, Lukka learns more of the Eluda from the other bonders and feels his connection with his bonded monster deepen, as seen on the card Tentative Connection. The motley band of bonders arrive at the foot of the massive crystal formation, but the Ozolith senses their presence, and they're immediately met by a cohort of nightmares. Vivian and the bonders distract the horrors, while Lukka and his cat fly to the central hub of the crystalline structures. Since he had the power to break the Ozolith's hold over his beast, he may have the power to stop it at the source. As he makes his approach, Lukka hears the constant droning of the voice rattling in his head. It comes to a crescendo as he reaches out to touch the crystal, and a moment later, he is connected to it and consumed by the crystal. While connected, he talks to the disembodied and otherworldly voice within the Ozolith. It speaks in an easy, almost friendly manner, and explains that it is responsible for the change in the monsters, though it hides its reasons as well as its identity. As the conversation unfolds, the battle outside turns into chaos when Jarina and her bounty hunters arrive by skyship and join the fray. Monsters and humans are falling left and right, and the voice tells Lukka that there's only one way to save Jarina. It manipulates him into letting it in his mind so that he may harness its power and control the monsters. He submits, and as it consumes him, a massive shockwave of orange energy bursts from the Ozolith and rolls over the embattled monsters. Now in control of the monsters, Lukka has them destroy the skyship and bring Jarina to him. Before they reach her, Lukka's cat swoops in and rescues her. Free from the Ozolith's power, it realizes that Lukka is now a slave as it once was, and aims to protect what he used to hold most dear. Meanwhile, Vivian and the Bonders learn of what Lukka has done. He tells them that this is the next step, that an army of controlled monsters will protect humanity and allow him to return home. But the Eluda is not a bond of master and slave. It's a bond of deep kinship, and they refuse to join him. Driven by the incessant voice in his head, he reaches out to control the Bonder's monsters, but the Eluda is too strong a connection, and he fails. Vivian and the Bonders flee. Meanwhile, Jarina and Lukka's cat return to Drannith. Rumors flow freely that Jarina has now sided with the monsters and is as much a traitor as is Lukka. Not one to be publicly disgraced, the general has the cat imprisoned, and to show the citizenry his daughter's unwavering loyalty, orders her to execute it. After witnessing the connection between Bonder and Beast firsthand at the Ozolith and being rescued by a monster, Jarina hasn't the heart to carry out the monster's cruel execution. Kudro takes the sword and performs the act himself, seen in the spotlight card, Heartless Act. Miles away, Lukka, who still shares a connection with the beast, watches the scene play out from its perspective. Seconds before its demise, the cat's eyes turn towards Jarina. Lukka learns that it brought her back to Drannith, so that's where he must go, to show the general that using the monsters is the future of humanity, and to be reunited with his fiancée. He reaches out with his power and calls forth an army to march on Drannith. This mobilization is illustrated in the card, Weaponize the Monsters. Reports flood into Drannith of unprecedented monster activity in the plains beyond the city's borders with a human as their leader. The general's worst fear is realized. He believes Lukka has sided with the monsters and is intent on destroying civilization. As proud as he is of his city, he understands that its walls won't be able to stop the coming onslaught, and so he formulates a plan. He'll take his army to the field and meet the threat head-on. He commands his daughter to come with him, knowing Jarina is the only person Lukka will trust, and orders her to kill him if given the opportunity. The two armies encamp on opposite ends of a riverbank, and while preparing for battle, the general receives word from Lukka that he wants a parley. Kudro sees this as a perfect opportunity to arm Jarina and use her to murder the traitor. With his plan set, he agrees to meet Lukka. The exile of Drannith attempts a peaceful resolution one last time. He explains to the general that an army of monsters protecting Drannith will prevent the needless loss of so many human lives. If they could have used monsters, perhaps even his old unit would still be alive. The general is a stubborn man, set in his ways, who would sooner see the lives of hundreds of Coppercoats ended than see a monster enter the streets of the invincible city. Lukka realizes that Drannith is full of stubborn men, and in order to return to his beloved city, he'll have to take it by force. As the conversation grows heated, Jarina appeals to Lukka and steps in close. She still loves her fiancé and doesn't want him hurt, so she reveals the general's intentions. But what the general doesn't know is Lukka has laid a trap of his own. A moment later, the ground itself erupts as several nightmarish monsters emerge and slaughter the general's bodyguard. The ballista stationed on the human side of the river begin to fire, but they are overwhelmed by massive cats and demolished. Amidst the chaos, Lukka grabs Jarina's sword and runs over to the general. If things are ever to change in Drannith, the old ways must be destroyed. He slides the blade through Kudro's ribs and murders the general of Drannith. Shocked and in fear for her life, Jarina strikes Lukka, barely grazing his cheek with her sword, before turning to escape to the city. With her father dead and her lover crazed, the defense of Drannith in the coming battle rests on her shoulders. She seeks the aid of Vivian Reed and the Bonders to assist in its protection against Lukka's nightmares. After laying his trap and killing General Kudro, Lukka arrives at the gates of Drannith atop a massive dinosaur turtle and at the head of a monster army. Jarina takes command of the city as the daughter of the general and works with Vivian and the Bonders to stop Lukka. The Bonders and their monsters are to hide within the city until Lukka's lines spread thin across the walls of Drannith, then lead a counterattack to defeat him directly. Battle erupts, with humans slaying monsters and monsters ripping into bodies by the dozens, and goes according to Jarina's plan. She uses herself as bait to get Lukka's attention and isolate him from his monsters by confronting him personally. In their brief exchange, she realizes the extent of Lukka's madness, who claims that he will build a new Drannith on the ashes of the old one. He surrounds her with monsters and orders her surrender, but at Jarina's orders, the gates are opened and a herd of monsters led by Vivian and the Bonders rush out to spearhead an attack on his nightmares. This is seen in the spotlight card, Lead the Stampede. With his monsters killed and the tables turned on him, Lukka desperately reaches out with the Ozolith to wrest control of the bonded monsters in front of him. The voice tells him that he is drawing too much energy and straining the crystal, but he doesn't listen. In a final grasp at victory, he pulls all of the power of the Ozolith, too much for it to handle, and it explodes in a brilliant inferno of red magic. This is depicted in the card Unpredictable Cyclone. With his power frayed and his mind in agony, something flickers deep within his soul and ignites his planeswalker spark. The next moment, Lukka fades out of existence. With the battle won and the Ozolith destroyed, it's time for Jarina and the people of Drannith to rebuild their home. In light of the Bonders' aid in the fight against Lukka, the citizens of Drannith have loosened their laws against monsters in an attempt to bridge the gap between monster and man. A bright future of coexistence may be on the horizon for Ikoria, but Vivian doesn't stay to see events unfold. Intent on finding the individual responsible for the Ozolith, she planeswalks away. Meanwhile, Lukka awakens in a swamp on an unknown plane and is immediately surrounded by canine beasts. He reaches out to them with his mind and finds he still wields the power of the Ozolith, if only in part. Soon, he says, he will return home. Now that the story of Ikoria is over, I'd like to discuss more speculative topics, namely the presence of other planeswalkers. Narset, a native from the dragon plane of Tarkir, has taken interest in Ikoria, specifically the triome of Rao Grin. This shouldn't come as much surprise since its mana reserves are the same as her clans of the old timeline, but what is interesting is that this is her first planeswalker card to contain all 3 Jeskai colors of mana. Her study and meditation in Rao Grin take her deep into her past and potentially her alternate reality. This meditation has given her access to red mana, and the title of her card, Narset of the Ancient Way, suggests she has embraced the ways of the now centuries-old Jeskai clan. We don't get Narset in the Sundered Bond ebook as much more than a cameo, appearing to Jarina as a stranger in Skysail buying out the scrolls and tomes of traveling merchants. The Wanderer also makes an appearance on Ikoria, but only briefly in the art of the card Blade Banish. Much of the Wanderer continues to be shrouded in mystery, but given the nature of her Planeswalker spark, and the fact that she has to make conscious efforts not to planeswalk, it's no surprise that she's visited Ikoria. The more telling question would be how many planes hasn't she visited? As for the Ozolith, we can only guess the being behind it. But that is a much larger topic and one to which I will dedicate a future video. Thanks for watching this breakdown of the Ikoria story. I hope it's given some insight into the plane and a greater appreciation for the amazing illustrations and flavor texts of the cards. What are your thoughts about Ikoria? Is Lukka a misunderstood hero or a disillusioned villain? Where did he go? And who is the voice behind the Ozolith? Let me know your thoughts down in the comments, and don't forget to leave a thumbs up if you liked the video, and subscribe for weekly content. Until next time, go forth and explore the lore.